Assistant State's Attorney Adrian Vale has vanished. The news breaks at 11 p.m., interrupting regular programming across Chicago. But Adrian Vale isn't missing. He's very much alive, tied to a steel chair in a freezing meatpacking warehouse along the Chicago River, blood dripping from a split lip, wrists raw from zip ties cutting into skin. 3 men circle him like wolves. The leader, a tattooed enforcer named Dante, crouches in front of Adrian, breath visible in the frigid air. The guillotine, Dante mocks, using Adrian's nickname from the press. You've put away half the South Side. Destroyed families. Ruined lives. He grabs Adrian's jaw roughly. How does it feel to be powerless? Adrian doesn't flinch. His hazel eyes, the ones that have stared down murderers and mob bosses in courtrooms, remain steady. You don't understand who you just kidnapped, Adrian says quietly, blood on his teeth making the words look vicious. Dante laughs. A prosecutor? Please. You're just a man in a suit who forgot where he came from. But Adrian isn't talking to Dante. He's talking to the camera mounted in the corner, the one streaming live footage to whoever ordered this. Because this isn't random. This is a message. The West Side Collective has been trying to destabilize Chicago's most powerful crime syndicate for months. They've hit supply lines, bribed politicians, eliminated key players. But they needed something bigger. Someone untouchable. Adrian Vale, the golden boy prosecutor who's never lost a case, who's been called Chicago's future mayor, who supposedly can't be bought or broken, is their leverage. What they don't know is that Adrian has never been untouchable. He's been protected. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, Luca Moretti watches the live stream on 3 separate monitors. The feed was sent to him anonymously 20 minutes ago. A taunt. A declaration of war. Luca doesn't move. Doesn't blink. His dark eyes, the color of espresso and just as bitter, take in every detail. Adrian's torn shirt. The bruise forming on his cheekbone. The way he's trying not to shiver in the cold. Luca's second-in-command, Marco, stands behind him, waiting for orders. Boss, they're using him to draw you out. It's a trap. We should send. No one, Luca interrupts, his voice low and lethal. I go alone. Marco's eyes widen. You can't be serious. If they know you're coming personally, they don't know anything. Luca stands, rolling up the sleeves of his black dress shirt with methodical precision. They think they kidnapped leverage. They think they understand power. He reaches for his jacket, checking the weapon concealed at his hip. They took the one thing in this city I've spent 15 years protecting. Marco goes still. You mean? Adrian and I grew up in the same orphanage, Luca says, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Englewood. South Side. Before he became Chicago's golden prosecutor and I became what I am. He moves toward the elevator, his presence filling the space with controlled violence. He doesn't know I've been protecting him. Doesn't know that every assassination attempt that failed, every political attack that collapsed, every threat that disappeared. Luca stops at the elevator doors. That was me. Marco swallows hard. If you go yourself, the West Side will know they got to you. Good, Luca says softly. Let them know. The elevator doors close. And Chicago's most feared crime boss goes to war. For one man. Back in the warehouse, Dante's phone rings. He answers, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion to something that might be fear. What do you mean he's coming himself? Dante hisses into the phone. Moretti doesn't move personally for. He stops. Looks at Adrian with new eyes. Who the hell are you to him? Adrian's smile is cold and knowing. You're about to find out. 15 minutes later, the warehouse doors explode inward. Not kicked. Not shot. Blown off their hinges with surgical precision. Luca Moretti walks through the smoke and debris like he's entering a cathedral. No army. No backup. Just one man in an expensive suit, gun in hand, death in his eyes. The first enforcer raises his weapon. Luca shoots him before he can aim, a perfect headshot that drops him instantly. The second tries to run. Luca's bullet catches him in the spine. Dante scrambles backward, reaching for his gun, but Luca is already there, moving with the controlled violence of someone who's done this 1,000 times. He disarms Dante with brutal efficiency, breaking the man's wrist with a sickening crack. Dante screams. Luca doesn't make a sound. He just keeps walking toward Adrian, stepping over bodies, gun still raised, eyes locked on the man tied to the chair. When he finally reaches Adrian, everything stops. The warehouse falls silent except for Dante's whimpering and the distant sound of sirens that will arrive too late to matter. Luca and Adrian stare at each other for the first time in over a decade. Recognition hits like lightning. The orphanage hallway. Shared blankets on cold nights. Luca's bruised knuckles from fighting off bullies. Adrian's quiet voice reading books out loud because Luca never learned how. Two boys who survived hell together. Until one got adopted by a wealthy legal family in Lincoln Park. And the other got left behind. You still refuse to look afraid, Luca murmurs, pulling a knife from his pocket. He cuts the zip ties slowly. Too slowly. Like he's savoring the proximity. Adrian's voice is steady despite the blood on his lip. You're still a criminal. Luca's jaw tightens. And you're still alive because of me. The zip ties fall away. Adrian tries to stand, but his legs are numb from being bound for hours. Luca catches him before he can fall. And then, ignoring Adrian's protests, he lifts him into his arms. Not because Adrian can't walk, but because Luca refuses to let anyone else touch him. Put me down, Adrian says, but there's no real force behind it. No, Luca replies simply. He carries Adrian out of the warehouse, stepping over the bodies he's made, into the Chicago night where snow has begun to fall. Behind them, Dante manages to pull himself up against a wall, phone in his shaking hand. He dials his boss with his one good hand. We have a problem, he gasps. Moretti didn't send soldiers. He came himself. And the way he looked at the prosecutor? His boss's voice is cold. What are you saying? Dante watches through the broken doors as Luca places Adrian carefully into a black SUV, his hands lingering on Adrian's face like he's checking for injuries, or like he's memorizing him. I'm saying we didn't just kidnap Chicago's prosecutor, Dante whispers. We kidnapped Luca Moretti's. The line goes dead. Because across the city, in a boardroom where the West Side Collective's leaders are meeting, everyone has just realized the same thing. They didn't draw out Chicago's most powerful crime boss. They declared war on him. And Luca Moretti doesn't fight wars. He ends them. Chapter 2, The Rescue That Feels Like a Claim. The SUV's heated seats do nothing to stop Adrian from shivering. Shock probably. Or blood loss. Or the sudden realization that the city's most dangerous crime boss just carried him out of a warehouse like he weighed nothing. Luca drives in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console, close enough to Adrian that their fingers could touch if either of them moved an inch. Neither does. You need a hospital, Adrian finally says, his prosecutor voice returning despite the split lip. No. I need to report this. The kidnapping, the bodies. No hospitals, Luca repeats, his tone leaving no room for argument. No police. No statements. Adrian turns to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since the warehouse. Luca Moretti at 31 is nothing like the violent, protective boy from the orphanage. He's refined now. Expensive suit tailored perfectly. Dark hair cut with precision. A face that could have belonged to a corporate CEO if not for the cold calculation in his eyes and the blood on his cufflinks. Where are you taking me? Adrian demands. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. Luca's jaw tightens. My penthouse. Gold Coast. Locked down, guarded. No one will touch you there. Adrian's laugh is sharp and humorless. You're kidnapping me now? I'm the assistant state's attorney, Moretti. You can't just. I didn't kidnap you, Luca interrupts, his voice dropping to something dangerous. I reclaimed what they took from me. The possessiveness in those words makes Adrian's breath catch. I don't belong to you. Luca doesn't answer. But his knuckles go white on the steering wheel. The penthouse is exactly what Adrian expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, modern furniture that probably costs more than Adrian's annual salary, art that's definitely stolen. Two guards stand at the private elevator entrance. They nod at Luca and pretend not to see the blood. Sir, one of them says quietly. Marco called. The West Side is mobilizing. They know you moved personally. Let them mobilize, Luca says, guiding Adrian inside with a hand on his lower back. Make sure no one comes up without my explicit permission. Not Marco. Not anyone. The guard's eyebrows rise slightly but he nods. The elevator doors close. Adrian and Luca are alone. You're making this worse, Adrian says, exhaustion creeping into his voice. If anyone finds out I'm here, no one will find out. The media is already looking for me. My office, the FBI, will receive a statement that you're in protective custody due to credible threats. Luca's hand is still on Adrian's back, steady and warm. Your phone was destroyed in the kidnapping. You'll be unreachable for 72 hours while we secure your safety. Adrian stops walking. You've already arranged this. I arranged it the moment I saw the live stream. How did you? Adrian's eyes widen. You knew. Before you even left to get me, you knew exactly what you were going to do. Luca meets his gaze, and there's something ancient and protective in his expression. I've known what I'd do if anyone touched you since we were 16 years old, Adrian. The use of his first name, not Mr. Vale, not prosecutor, sends electricity down Adrian's spine. That was 15 years ago, Adrian says quietly. We're not those people anymore. Aren't we? Luca steps closer, and Adrian is suddenly viscerally aware of how much bigger Luca is now. How much more dangerous. You're still the boy who read me books when I couldn't, Luca murmurs. Still the one who shared his blanket when I had none. Still the only person who looked at me like I was worth saving. And you're still the boy who broke Tommy Rodriguez's arm for pushing me, Adrian counters. Still violent. Still in love with you. The confession hangs in the air between them. Adrian's world tilts. What? Luca's expression doesn't change, but something vulnerable flickers in his eyes. You were adopted by the Valles. Given everything, education, opportunities, a future. I was left behind in Englewood with nothing. His voice is carefully controlled. I told myself I'd become something. Someone you couldn't ignore. Someone strong enough to protect you from everything this city could throw at you. So you became a crime lord, Adrian says, disbelief in something else, something that might be heartbreak, in his voice. I became untouchable, Luca corrects. So that Chicago would never dare touch you. Adrian stumbles backward, his legs finally giving out from exhaustion and shock. Luca catches him instantly, arms around his waist, holding him up. I need to sit, Adrian breathes. Luca doesn't let go. Instead, he lifts Adrian again, one arm under his knees, the other supporting his back, and carries him to the master bedroom. I can walk, Adrian protests weakly. I know. But Luca doesn't put him down until he's sitting on the edge of a bed that probably costs more than a car. He kneels in front of Adrian, hands on his knees, and the position is so wrong, Chicago's most feared crime boss on his knees, that Adrian can't process it. You need medical attention, Luca says, examining Adrian's bruised face with gentle fingers. I have a doctor on call. Discreet. No. Adrian. No doctors. No guards. No statements. Adrian catches Luca's wrist, stopping his inspection. Just tell me the truth. How long have you been protecting me? Luca's expression shifts to something careful. How long have you been a prosecutor? Adrian's breath catches. 7 years. Then 7 years. That's not possible. I would have noticed. Would you? Luca asks quietly. The informant who was going to testify against you in the Delgado case, the one who disappeared the night before trial? Adrian goes still. That was you. He was going to lie. Say you fabricated evidence. It would have destroyed your career. The assassination attempt after the Moreno verdict? 3 men. Hired by the Moreno family. They never made it within 100 feet of you. Adrian's mind is reeling, connecting dots he never knew existed. The political attack last year. The ethics investigation that collapsed. Based on forged documents, Luca confirms. I acquired the originals and made sure the right people saw them. Jesus Christ. Adrian pulls his hand away, standing on shaky legs. You've been manipulating my entire career. Every victory I thought I earned. You earned them, Luca says sharply, rising to his full height. Every case you won because you're brilliant. Because you're relentless. Because you're better than everyone else in that courtroom. He steps closer. I just made sure you survived long enough to prove it. That's not your choice to make. It became my choice the moment you walked out of that orphanage, Luca says, his control finally cracking. The moment I realized I'd never see you again. The moment I understood that the world would try to break you just like it tried to break me. His hands curl into fists. I couldn't protect you then. I was nothing. No power, no resources, no way to keep you safe. But I swore on everything, that if I ever got the chance I would make sure Chicago kneeled before it touched you. The raw emotion in Luca's voice strips away years of distance. Adrian sees him clearly then, not the crime boss, not the killer, but the 16-year-old boy who used to sit in the orphanage hallway, watching Adrian pack his single suitcase with heartbreak in his eyes. You said you'd come back, Adrian whispers. The day I left. You said, when I come back, I won't be weak anymore. Luca's expression softens. You remember? Of course I remember. Adrian's voice cracks. You were my best friend. My only friend. And then the Vallas adopted me and I tried to go back. After the first year. I wanted to find you too. I was gone by then, Luca says. Aged out of the system. Already working for the Moretti family, learning the business. The mob. Power, Luca corrects. The kind that means no one can hurt the people I love. People? Adrian challenges. Or person. Luca doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The silence stretches between them, heavy with 15 years of unspoken words. Then Adrian's phone, somehow still intact in his jacket pocket, buzzes. He pulls it out with shaking hands. 12 missed calls from his office. 8 from the FBI. And 1 text message from an unknown number. We have proof that Moretti's been protecting you. Photos. Financial records. Communications. You have 48 hours to indict him publicly or we leak everything to the press. Your career will be over. Everyone will know Chicago's golden prosecutor was owned by a mobster all along. Adrian's blood turns to ice. What is it? Luca asks, reading his expression. Adrian shows him the message. Luca's face goes cold and lethal. They're trying to destroy you, he says quietly. Using me as the weapon. They'll succeed, Adrian says, his mind racing through legal implications, career destruction, everything he's built crumbling. If this gets out, if there's any proof that you've been involved in my cases, then you indict me. Adrian's head snaps up. What? You do your job, Luca says, his voice calm despite the storm in his eyes. You investigate me. Publicly. You distance yourself from any connection we have. You save your career. And destroy you in the process? I've survived worse. Luca, I didn't spend 15 years keeping you alive just to watch you lose everything because of me, Luca says firmly. If they want a war, fine. But you don't become collateral damage. Adrian stares at him, seeing the truth written clearly in every line of Luca's face. He means it. He would let Adrian destroy him if it meant keeping Adrian safe. The realization breaks something open in Adrian's chest. I can't, he whispers. You can and you will. No. Adrian steps forward, closing the distance between them. I spent 15 years building a career putting criminals in prison. I've never compromised. Never bet. Never let anyone corrupt what I do. His hands are shaking. But I also spent 15 years wondering what happened to the boy who protected me. Who made me feel safe when nothing else did. Who? He stops, the words catching in his throat. Luca's expression shifts to something desperate and hopeful. Who? What? Adrian? Who I loved, Adrian finishes, the confession tearing out of him. I loved you. At 16. Before I understood what that meant. And then I left and I told myself it was just childhood attachment. Just survival bonding. Just. It wasn't, Luca breathes. No, Adrian agrees. It wasn't. They're inches apart now, close enough that Adrian can see the gold flecks in Luca's dark eyes, can feel the heat radiating from his body. They're going to force me to choose, Adrian says quietly. My career or you? The law or? Choose the law, Luca says immediately. I mean it. If it comes down to. Adrian kisses him. It's not gentle. It's 15 years of longing and loss and desperate need compressed into a single moment. Luca freezes for a heartbeat, then responds with controlled violence. One hand cupping the back of Adrian's head, the other wrapping around his waist, pulling him closer like he's afraid Adrian will disappear. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Luca rests his forehead against Adrian's. This changes nothing, he says roughly. You still need to protect yourself. Still need to. It changes everything, Adrian counters. And we both know it. Outside, Chicago continues its dark rhythm. But inside the penthouse, two men who've been orbiting each other for 15 years finally collide. And neither knows if it will save them or destroy them both. Chapter 3, Southside Ghosts. Adrian wakes to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment he forgets where he is. Then he sees Luca standing at the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, lethal tones. I don't care what the West Side is planning. Double the guards on every property. No one moves without my approval. Boss. And Marco? Find out who sent that text message to Adrian. I want names by tonight. He ends the call and turns to find Adrian awake. You should be resting, Luca says, moving to the bedside with a cup of coffee. I should be at my office, Adrian counters, accepting the cup. Explaining where I've been for the past 12 hours. Your chief of staff received a call from the FBI. You're officially in protective custody due to credible threats following the kidnapping. You can't keep controlling my life. I can and I will, Luca says simply. Until the people who took you are eliminated. Adrian's prosecutor instincts kick in. Eliminated. You mean killed. I mean removed as threats. That's the same thing in your world. Luca sits on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but maintaining careful distance. My world is the reason you're alive, Adrian. Don't forget that. The words sting because they're true. Adrian sets down the coffee, his mind racing through everything he learned last night. 7 years of protection. 7 years of Luca orchestrating his safety from the shadows. I need to understand, Adrian says quietly. What happened after I left the orphanage? How did you become this? Luca's expression closes off. That's not important. It's important to me. Silence. Then Luca stands, moving back to the window like he needs the distance. You left on a Tuesday, he says finally. The valets came in their expensive car, signed the papers, took you to Lincoln Park. You looked back once. Just once. And I promised myself that when you saw me again, I'd be someone you could be proud of. Luca. I aged out of the system 6 months later. 16, no education, no prospects. The Moretti family was recruiting in Englewood. I was good with my fists, better at reading people. They took me in. His voice is flat, emotionless. I worked my way up. Enforcer. Lieutenant. By 23 I was running the South Side. By 25 I controlled half of Chicago. Adrian's chest tightens. You built an empire. I built protection, Luca corrects, turning to face him. The first time I saw you again you were 21. Law school graduation. You gave a speech about justice and integrity. You were brilliant. His expression softens dangerously. And I realized that everything I'd become, everything dark and violent, was worth it if it kept someone like you in this world. I didn't ask you to do that. I know. I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself. You existed, Luca interrupts, his voice rough. That was enough. The confession hangs between them. Adrian stands, closing the distance despite every logical part of his brain screaming that this is wrong. I became a prosecutor to put people like you in prison, he says. I know. I've built my entire career on being incorruptible. I know that too. And now I'm standing in your penthouse, drinking your coffee after you killed 3 men to save me. Adrian's voice drops. What does that make me? Human, Luca says softly. It makes you human, Adrian. Before Adrian can respond, Luca's phone rings. He checks the screen, his expression darkening. It's Marco. I need to take this. He steps into the hallway, leaving Adrian alone with his thoughts and the growing realization that everything he believed about himself is unraveling. When Luca returns 5 minutes later, his face is carved from stone. What is it? Adrian asks. The West Side leaked the first piece of evidence to the Chicago Tribune, Luca says. A photo from 3 years ago. You leaving a courthouse. My car parked across the street. The angle makes it look like I was watching you. Because you were, Adrian says. Yes. But now they have proof. Luca's jaw tightens. The story breaks tomorrow morning. Chicago's golden prosecutor under mob protection? They're painting you as either corrupt or compromised. Adrian's world tilts. My career is over. Not if you act first, Luca says. You have until tomorrow. Indict me publicly. Distance yourself. Salvage what you can. And if I don't? Luca meets his eyes and the pain there is devastating. Then we both burn. You can't be serious. I've spent 15 years keeping bullets out of you, Adrian. If destroying me is what keeps you safe, if it salvages your career and your reputation. He finally turns and the love in his eyes is devastating. Then I'll go quietly. I'll plead guilty to whatever you need. I'll give you everything. Why? Adrian asks, his voice breaking. Because loving you was the only good thing I ever did, Luca says simply. And I won't let that destroy you too. Adrian crosses the room in 3 strides. He grabs Luca's face with both hands, forcing him to meet his eyes. I spent 15 years believing I was alone, Adrian says fiercely. Believing I built everything myself through pure determination and skill. And maybe that was partly true. But you know what the worst part of learning the truth is? What? Luca whispers. Realizing that I was never alone. That even when I couldn't see you, even when I thought you were gone, you were there. Protecting me. Loving me. Sacrificing everything so I could have the life I wanted. Tears streak down Luca's face, the first time Adrian has ever seen him cry. I don't deserve you, Luca breathes. No, Adrian agrees. You don't. You're a criminal. A killer. Everything I'm supposed to stand against. He pauses. But you're also the boy who shared his blanket. Who protected me when no one else would. Who loved me when I was nobody. Adrian? I'm not going to indict you, Adrian says. You have to. Your career can burn, Adrian interrupts. I've spent my entire life doing what I was supposed to do. Being who I was supposed to be. And where did it get me? Standing in front of the only person who ever truly saw me, ready to destroy him to save a career built on partial truths. This is a mistake, Luca says desperately. Probably, Adrian admits. But it's my mistake to make. Not yours. Not the West Side's. Mine. He kisses Luca then, slow and deliberate and full of every complicated emotion between them. When they break apart, Luca rests his forehead against Adrian's. They'll destroy you for this, he murmurs. Let them try, Adrian says. I'm done being Chicago's golden boy. Time to be something real instead. Outside, the city continues its brutal rhythm. And inside the penthouse, two men make a choice that will change everything. Neither knows if it will save them or condemn them both. But for the first time in 15 years they're making it together. Chapter 4. The Truth About Protection. The Chicago Tribune story breaks at 6 a.m. Adrian watches it unfold on 3 different news channels simultaneously, standing in Luca's living room while his entire career implodes in real time. Chicago's guillotine, protected by the mob? The headline screams across every screen. The photo is damning. Adrian leaving the courthouse, briefcase in hand, while Luca's distinctive black SUV sits across the street, tinted windows reflecting the afternoon sun. The accompanying article speculates about corruption, collusion, years of cases potentially compromised. Adrian's phone hasn't stopped ringing. His chief of staff, the Attorney General, FBI Director Chin, every journalist in Illinois. He ignores them all. You need to make a statement, Luca says from behind him. Adrian doesn't turn around. Saying what? That Chicago's most wanted criminal has been stalking me for years without my knowledge? That every case I've won might be tainted because you decided to play guardian angel? The truth. The truth will destroy me faster than the lies. Luca moves closer, his presence solid and grounding. Then let it destroy you. At least you'll still have your integrity. Adrian laughs bitterly. My integrity? I'm standing in a crime lord's penthouse after kissing him last night. I think my integrity died somewhere between the warehouse and this moment. Adrian? No. Adrian finally turns, and the anguish on his face makes Luca step back. You don't get to tell me what to do. Not anymore. You've been pulling strings for 7 years, making decisions about my life, my career, my safety, all without asking if that's what I wanted. I was keeping you alive, Luca says, his voice tight with control. You were controlling me. Adrian's composure cracks. Every victory I thought I earned on my own, every case I won through hard work and skill, all of it was because you were manipulating things behind the scenes. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? To realize that nothing they've accomplished was entirely theirs. The words hit Luca like physical blows. That's not fair, he says quietly. Isn't it? Adrian challenges. Tell me honestly, how many of my cases did you interfere with? Luca's silence is answer enough. How many? Adrian presses. 12. The number steals Adrian's breath. 12 cases. Out of how many? You've prosecuted 47 major cases in 7 years, Luca says, his voice carefully measured. I only intervened when there was a credible threat to your life or when evidence was being fabricated against you. The other 35? Those were entirely you, Adrian. Your brilliance, your skill, your integrity. But I'll never know that for certain, will I? Adrian's voice breaks. I'll never know if I truly earned any of it or if I was just your pet project. You were never a project, Luca says, something desperate entering his tone. You are, everything. Before Adrian can respond, the penthouse elevator chimes. Marco steps out, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. The West Side just released another set of documents. Financial records showing wire transfers from Moretti family accounts to offshore holdings tied to. He stops, glancing at Adrian uncomfortably. Say it, Luca orders. Tied to the Vale family trust, Marco finishes. The one that paid for Adrian's law school tuition. The room goes silent. Adrian feels the ground disintegrate beneath his feet. What? He whispers. Luca's face has gone carefully blank. Tell me that's not true, Adrian says, his voice shaking. Tell me you didn't. Your adoptive parents' wealth came from real estate development, Luca says quietly. But they overextended themselves in 2015. The housing market crashed. They were facing bankruptcy. Your law school tuition was already committed, but they couldn't pay it. No. Adrian backs away. No, you didn't. I created a shell corporation. Made it look like an investment opportunity. Transferred money into their accounts through legitimate channels. They never knew it came from me. You bought my education. Adrian breathes, horror and betrayal warring in his chest. Everything I am, everything I've become, you paid for it? I ensured you had the opportunity you deserved, Luca corrects, but there's pain in his eyes now. You were brilliant, Adrian. You deserve to go to law school. To become the prosecutor you're meant to be. Your parents couldn't give you that. So I did. You had no right. Adrian's voice rises. That wasn't your decision to make. Those were my struggles, my challenges. And I loved you too much to watch you lose your future because of money, Luca says, his control finally shattering. I've watched you lose enough. I wasn't going to let you lose that too. The confession hangs in the air. Adrian stares at him, seeing clearly for the first time how deep Luca's obsession, his protection, truly goes. This is why they targeted me, Adrian says slowly, the pieces clicking into place. The West Side. They didn't just want leverage against you. They wanted to expose that I've been, what? Owned by you? Controlled by you since I was 21 years old? You were never owned, Luca says firmly. Wasn't I? Adrian challenges. My education, my career, my safety, all of it orchestrated by you. What part of my life has actually been mine, Luca? The question cuts deeper than any blade. Luca's expression shudders completely. I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Marco clears his throat uncomfortably. There's more. The West Side sent another message. They want a meeting. Absolutely not, Luca says immediately. They have proof of more financial connections. Going back 15 years. They're threatening to release everything unless... Marco hesitates. Unless what? Adrian demands. Marco looks at Luca for permission. Luca nods tightly. Unless Prosecutor Vale publicly announces that he's leading a federal task force to take down the Moretti family, Marco says. Starting with Luca. They want him indicted, arrested, and prosecuted. By you. Personally. The room goes silent again. Adrian looks at Luca and understands. This was always going to be the choice. The law or the man who's loved him, controlled him, protected him for 15 years. When do they want my answer? Adrian asks quietly. 48 hours, Marco says. Get out, Luca tells Marco, his voice hollow. Marco leaves without another word. When they're alone, Luca moves to the window, staring out at Chicago like he's memorizing it. You should do it, he says softly. Do what? Take the task force. Indict me. Build your case. Put me in prison. Luca's reflection in the glass is haunted. It's what you were always meant to do. And his voice catches. I'll make it easy for you. I won't run. Won't hide. Won't fight back. Chapter 5. Choose the law or choose me. Chicago erupts. Within 12 hours of Adrian's refusal to indict Luca, 3 Moretti family warehouses go up in flames. 2 West Side operations are hit in retaliation. Precise, surgical strikes that leave no survivors. The city is at war and everyone knows why. Because Chicago's golden prosecutor chose love over law. Adrian stands in Luca's war room, a secured space in the penthouse basement filled with monitors, maps, and armed men, watching the violence unfold in real time. This is my fault, he says quietly. No, Luca replies, standing beside him with Marco and 3 lieutenants. This was always coming. The West Side has been pushing for months. You just gave them an excuse to escalate. People are dying because I won't do my job. People are dying because the West Side is trying to destabilize Chicago, Luca corrects. Don't take responsibility for their choices. Adrian's phone buzzes. Another call from the Attorney General. He ignores it like he's ignored the previous 47. They're calling for your resignation, Marco says, reading something on his tablet. The Illinois Bar Association has opened an ethics investigation. FBI Director Chin gave a statement saying you're compromised beyond repair. Let them, Adrian says, surprising himself with how little he cares. The door opens and one of Luca's guards enters. Boss, we have a situation. The West Side wants a meeting. Neutral ground. Tonight. Luca's expression hardens. Absolutely not. It's a trap. They said if you don't come, they'll release the final piece of evidence they have. The one that, the guard hesitates, glancing at Adrian. Say it, Luca orders. The one that proves Adrian knew about your protection from the beginning. Adrian goes still. That's impossible. I didn't know until 3 days ago. The guard pulls out his phone, showing them a photograph. It's Adrian at 23, fresh out of law school, standing outside a coffee shop. Across the street, partially hidden by shadows, is a younger Luca. But that's not the damning part. The damning part is Adrian's face, turned toward Luca, eyes meeting his, a small smile on his lips. This was taken 7 years ago, the guard says. 3 weeks before you started at the state's attorney's office. If they release this, it proves you've known about Moretti's surveillance all along. That you've been willingly complicit. Adrian stares at the photo, memories flooding back. That coffee shop. That day. He'd felt someone watching him. Turned and saw. I saw you, Adrian whispers, looking at Luca. That day. Just for a moment. I thought I was imagining it. That my mind was playing tricks because He stops. Because you what? Luca asks quietly. Because I missed you, Adrian admits. I'd spent 2 years trying to convince myself that what I felt for you at 16 was just childhood attachment. But then I saw you across the street and it all came flooding back. You smiled at me, Luca says, his voice rough with emotion. I thought I was hallucinating. You weren't. Luca's hands curl into fists. I'd been following you for months. Making sure you were safe. Making sure law school wasn't destroying you. And that day for just a second you looked right at me. Smiled. And I thought. That I knew, Adrian finishes. Yes. But I didn't. Not consciously. Adrian looks at the photo again. But they can twist this. Make it look like we've been working together from the start. Which is why we're not going to this meeting, Luca says firmly. We have to, Adrian counters. If we don't, they release this and any chance I have of salvaging anything is gone. At least if we meet them, we might be able to negotiate. Negotiate what? Marco asks incredulously. They want you to destroy Luca. That's the only deal they'll accept. Then we give them what they want, Adrian says. The room goes silent. Luca turns to face him fully. What are you talking about? I indict you, Adrian says, his prosecutor mind already working through the strategy. Publicly. Very publicly. I announce that I'm leading a federal task force targeting the Moretti family. I make a show of cutting all ties, condemning you, promising to bring you to justice. Adrian? But we control the evidence, Adrian continues. We make sure every piece of information they try to use against us is countered. We build a case that looks strong on the surface but has enough reasonable doubt that no jury would convict. Luca stares at him. You want to fake prosecuting me? I want to give Chicago what it needs, a prosecutor who's doing his job. And I want to give the West Side what they think they want, you destroyed. But in reality, I walk free and you keep your career, Luca finishes. His expression is unreadable. That's brilliant. And completely insane. It's the only play we have, Adrian says. It's also fraud, Marco points out. If anyone finds out you're deliberately tanking your own case. They won't, Adrian says with more confidence than he feels. Because I'm actually going to build a real case. I'm going to investigate every legitimate crime the Moretti family has committed. I'm going to present real evidence in court. The only difference is, you'll make sure the chain of custody is questionable, Luca says slowly, understanding dawning. You'll cross every T and dot every I so perfectly that any defense attorney can find procedural errors. You'll do your job so well that it becomes impossible to get a conviction. Exactly. That's not justice, Luca says quietly. No, Adrian admits. It's survival. For both of us. The room holds its breath. Finally, Luca nods to his guard. Tell the West Side we'll meet. Tonight. But not alone. I'm bringing Adrian. Sir, that's non-negotiable, Luca says. If they want him to indict me, he does it to their faces. On neutral ground. With witnesses. After the guard leaves, Luca turns to Adrian. Are you sure about this? He asks. Once you announce that indictment, there's no going back. Chicago will believe you've turned on me. My family will think I've been betrayed. Every criminal in this city will see you as the man who finally brought down Luca Moretti. Good, Adrian says. Let them believe it. As long as you know the truth. And what's the truth? Adrian steps close enough to feel Luca's breath. That I chose you, he says simply. I chose you over my career, over my reputation, over everything I've built. And I'm not letting the West Side or anyone else take that away from us. Luca's control finally breaks. He kisses Adrian desperately, like a man who's been starving for 15 years and finally found sustenance. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Luca rests his forehead against Adrian's. If this goes wrong, he murmurs, if they see through the plan. Then we burn together, Adrian finishes. I'm done running from this, Luca. From you. From what we are to each other. And what are we to each other? Adrian's smile is sad and beautiful. Everything we've always been. Two boys from Englewood who survived hell and found each other again on the other side. 6 hours later, Adrian and Luca stand on the rooftop of an unfinished skyscraper overlooking downtown Chicago. The West Side's leaders wait on the opposite end. 5 men in expensive suits, flanked by armed guards. Wind whips across the open space, carrying the sounds of the city below. Prosecutor Vale, the lead man, says, Jackson West, head of the West Side Collective. I'm surprised you came. I'm here to end this, Adrian replies, his voice carrying across the space. By indicting Moretti? By doing my job, Adrian says. He pulls out a document from his coat. I'm announcing tomorrow that I'm leading a federal task force targeting organized crime in Chicago. Starting with the Moretti family. Luca Moretti will be indicted on 17 counts including racketeering, conspiracy, and murder. Jackson smiles. Just like that? You expect us to believe you've suddenly developed a conscience? I expect you to accept that your leverage worked, Adrian says coldly. You wanted me to choose between my career and him. I choose my career. I choose the law. I choose justice. He looks at Luca, and the pain in his eyes is real enough that everyone watching believes it. I'm sorry, Adrian says quietly. Luca's expression is carved from stone. Don't apologize for doing what's right. Jackson laughs. Beautiful. Truly. The golden prosecutor finally remembers who he is. He nods to his men. We'll expect the formal announcement tomorrow. And Moretti? When this goes to trial, you better pray your lawyers are good. Because the prosecutor here just sealed your fate. As the West Side contingent leaves, Adrian and Luca stand alone on the rooftop. The wind howls. Chicago spreads out beneath them like a living thing. Did they buy it? Adrian asks quietly. We'll know soon enough, Luca replies. Adrian reaches into his coat again. Luca tenses, unsure what's coming. But instead of a badge or handcuffs, Adrian pulls out his hand and offers it to Luca. Whatever happens next, Adrian says, we face it together. Luca stares at that offered hand, at the choice Adrian is making in full view of anyone who might be watching. Then he takes it. Their fingers interlace. And 2 men who've spent 15 years circling each other finally stand as one. Against Chicago. Against the world. Against everything that's tried to keep them apart. Chapter 6. When Chicago Kneels. The indictment announcement breaks every news cycle in America. Assistant State's Attorney Adrian Vale, Chicago's guillotine, stands before a wall of cameras and announces he will personally prosecute Luca Moretti. His voice is steady. Professional. Cold. For too long, organized crime has operated with impunity in this city. That ends today. The media explodes. Legal analysts call it the trial of the decade. The FBI pledges full support. And across the city, in a secure holding facility, Luca Moretti surrenders himself without resistance. No lawyers. No delays. No fight. He walks into custody like a man who's accepted his fate. The first time Adrian sees him after the arrest, it's across an interrogation table with FBI agents watching through one-way glass. "Mr. Moretti," Adrian says formally, "do you understand the charges against you?" "Yes," Luca replies, his expression unreadable. "Do you wish to make a statement?" "No." "Then I'll see you in court." Adrian stands to leave, and for just a second, less than a heartbeat, their eyes meet. And everything they can't say passes between them in that glance. "Trust me. I love you. This isn't over." 3 months later. The trial is a spectacle. Every major news outlet covers it. The courtroom is packed daily. Adrian is brilliant, methodical, precise, devastating in his prosecution. He presents 17 counts with airtight evidence. Financial records. Witness testimony. Physical evidence. Luca's defense team fights back, but Adrian has built a fortress of a case. Except, slowly, carefully, Adrian plants seeds of reasonable doubt. A witness whose timeline doesn't quite match. A financial document with a suspicious gap in the chain of custody. Evidence collected without proper warrants. Nothing obvious. Nothing that screams intentional sabotage. Just tiny cracks in an otherwise perfect case. Cracks a good defense attorney could exploit. And Luca's attorney, one of the best in the country, exploits every single one. The trial stretches into its 4th month. Public opinion shifts. Some call Adrian a hero. Others whisper that he's not as invincible as everyone thought. Then the West Side makes their move. It happens during closing arguments. Adrian is halfway through his summation when armed men storm the courthouse. Chaos erupts. Gunfire. Screaming. Guards scrambling. Adrian instinctively moves toward Luca, still in custody, handcuffed, vulnerable. But the attackers aren't targeting Luca. They're targeting Adrian. "Get down," Luca roars. But he's restrained, helpless, watching as 3 men converge on Adrian with weapons raised. Time slows. Adrian sees the gun barrels. Sees his death coming. Then Luca does something impossible. He breaks the handcuffs, raw strength and desperate fury snapping metal that should be unbreakable. He launches himself across the courtroom, putting his body between Adrian and the bullets. The shots fire. Luca takes 3 rounds, shoulder, chest, side. He goes down hard, blood spreading across expensive suit fabric. But his momentum carries him into Adrian, knocking him behind the prosecutor's table just as more shots tear through the space where Adrian stood. Federal agents swarm in, taking down the attackers. The courtroom becomes a war zone for 90 seconds. Then silence. Adrian crawls to Luca, hands shaking, pressing against the wounds trying to stop the bleeding. "No, no, no." Adrian's composure shatters completely. "Medic. Someone get a medic." Luca's hand finds his face, leaving a streak of blood across Adrian's cheek. "You're safe," Luca whispers, his voice weak. "That's all that matters. You're dying, you idiot." "Worth it," Luca breathes. "Always worth it for you." His eyes start to close. "Luca, stay with me," Adrian begs, tears streaming down his face. "Please. You don't get to die. Not now. Not after everything." "Love you," Luca murmurs. 15 years. Always loved you." Then his hand falls away and his eyes close. Adrian screams. The hospital waiting room is sterile and cold. Adrian sits with blood on his clothes, Luca's blood, while surgeons fight to save the man who saved him countless times. FBI Director Chin finds him there. "Prosecutor Vale," she says quietly, sitting beside him. "We need to talk about what happened." "He saved my life," Adrian says hollowly. "He also broke federal restraints and assaulted armed assailants while in custody." "He saved my life," Adrian repeats, looking at her with eyes that have seen too much. "And if you try to add more charges, I'll resign. Publicly. I'll tell every news outlet in America that the FBI cares more about protocol than the fact that a defendant took 3 bullets meant for a prosecutor." Chin studies him for a long moment. "The attackers were West Side," she says finally. "We have confirmation. This was their endgame. Eliminate you in the most public way possible, destabilize Chicago completely." "Did it work?" "No." Chen's expression softens slightly. "Because Luca Moretti, Chicago's most wanted criminal, just proved on national television that he'd rather die than see you hurt. That's not the action of a man who's been controlling you. That's the action of someone who loves me," Adrian finishes quietly. Chen nods. "The jury saw it. The judge saw it. Everyone saw it." She pauses. I'm recommending the charges be dropped. All of them. Adrian's head snaps up. What? Reasonable doubt no longer applies when the entire country just watched a man take bullets for you, Chin says. We can't prove criminal intent beyond a reasonable doubt anymore. Not after this. She stands. Take care of him, Prosecutor Vale. And maybe consider that Chicago needs more than just law and order. Maybe it needs whatever you two are building together. She leaves. Adrian sits alone until a surgeon finally emerges. He's stable, the doctor says. Lost a lot of blood, but he'll survive. He's asking for you. Luca looks pale against white hospital sheets, but his eyes are alert when Adrian enters. You broke handcuffs, Adrian says, pulling a chair beside the bed. I had motivation. You took 3 bullets for me. I've taken worse, Luca replies, then winces as pain catches up with him. Adrian takes his hand carefully. The charges are being dropped. Chin said there's too much reasonable doubt now. So your plan worked. Our plan worked, Adrian corrects. Though you improvising with the heroic sacrifice wasn't part of it. Had to make sure you believed it, Luca says with a weak smile. Believed what? That I meant it. When I said I'd burn Chicago to ash before I let them touch you. Luca's grip tightens. I meant it, Adrian. Every word. Adrian leans forward, pressing his forehead to Luca's. I know. I've always known. Since we were 16 and you broke Tommy Rodriguez's arm for pushing me down the stairs. He deserved worse. Probably, Adrian agrees. But you taught me something that day. What? That I was worth protecting. Worth fighting for. Worth loving. Adrian's voice breaks. And I spent 15 years trying to prove I didn't need anyone. That I could stand alone. You can stand alone, Luca says softly. You just don't have to anymore. Outside the hospital window, Chicago continues its brutal rhythm. But inside this room, 2 men who've spent 15 years orbiting each other finally find peace. 6 months later. Adrian stands in Millennium Park at sunset, watching the city he's fought for, protected, and nearly died for. Arms wrap around him from behind. Luca, fully recovered, rests his chin on Adrian's shoulder. Thinking about work? He asks. Thinking about us, Adrian replies. About everything it took to get here. Regrets? Not a single one. They're different now. Adrian resigned from the state's attorney's office, but he didn't leave the law. He opened a private practice, defending people who can't defend themselves. And Luca is different too. The Moretti family still exists, but it's changing. Legitimate businesses. Community investments. Protection without violence when possible. They'll never be what Chicago expects. But they're exactly what Chicago needs. I have something for you, Luca says, pulling a small box from his pocket. Adrian turns, his heart racing. Inside the box is a simple silver band. We can't legally marry, Luca says. Not with my record in your career. But I wanted you to have this anyway. As a promise. What kind of promise? That wherever you stand, I'll stand beside you. Not behind you, not in front of you. Beside you. Always. Adrian's eyes burn with tears he doesn't bother hiding. You know I'm going to say yes. I was hoping. Adrian kisses him as the sun sets over Chicago, the city that tried to destroy them, that forged them, that ultimately brought them together. When they break apart, Adrian slips the ring onto his finger. What do we do now? He asks. Lucas smiles, rare and genuine. We live. For the first time in 15 years, we actually live. And in a city built on violence and corruption, 2 men who survived hell create something beautiful. Not perfect, not without complications, but undeniably, impossibly theirs.